responsibility is to the stability and the security of the region. That means being able to support, yes, Israel in its defensive capacities, right, in its ability in that context. But it also means that the United States has a responsibility to ensure accountability to human rights, to prevent the ethnic cleansing of Palestinians.
I don't. Seriously? There's no straddling the line on this one, you phony. And now that you have college students chanting death to Israel across our great country, joining me now is our political panel, Democratic strategist Jonathan Harris, along with former Deputy Press Secretary for the Trump administration, Hogan Gidley. Welcome to you both. Glad to have you. So, Jonathan, I have to ask you this. There is, and was on display this week, an anti-Semitic cancer that's spreading fast within the Democratic Party, and it was on display, right? And you saw it in cities, college campuses, on Capitol Hill, thanks to Rashida Tlaib. Why are too many on the left now outwardly supporting the monsters who slaughtered innocent Jews? I mean, this is like clear cut.
Well, I would stop short of saying that they're supporting people who killed civilians. I think what's sad about this is
they've actually been saying that. I mean, death to Jews, death to Israel. I mean, there's no like tiptoeing around this one.
I understand. You've heard that on both sides of this conversation, but I think more often what you're hearing is that there are people who are saying there is a humanitarian issue on both sides of this. There are children and innocent civilians being killed on both sides of this. And the idea that we are almost being forced to skip past our humanity to choose a faction is ridiculous. And I think that there are people who are nuanced enough to say, look, children and innocent people were killed in Palestine and Gaza, and they've also been killed in Israel. And the idea is to stop that from happening before you jump to turn this into a political football. Why don't we make sure that the people who are being targeted on both sides of this, the civilians, are protected? And I think to rush to call people who are concerned about what the Palestinians are going through anti-Semitic is just unfair.
No, but that's what I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about people who have outright had slogans on their placards and said death to Israel, death, happy that people have been beheaded and killed.
Right, and that's unacceptable. And that's unacceptable, as I said, on both sides. You've seen that on both sides of this argument. But
these are not MAGA supporters, right?
The Democrats are not doing that. There is no high-profile Democrat doing what you're talking about. So I think that's very clear. That's very important.
The point is, this is a huge block now of the progressive movement, which makes up a big part of the Democratic Party. And Hogan, we have seen in consistent polling now through the years a shift, right? A majority of Democrats in this country are supporting Palestinians and very anti-Israel. The Jews in this country make a solid block for the Democratic Party. Can you explain what's going on here?
Well, there was one squad member that was asked about condemning the death of children, of the elderly, of women, and she wouldn't do it. She ran through the halls of Congress and refused to answer that question. So I think the score here is pretty clear. But look, let's be honest about what's happening. The people of Israel, they love their children. They love life. They talk about them in glowing terms, and they do everything to protect those children. On the other side, though, Hamas says death is exactly what they should do in order to get to heaven. That is part of their mantra. Death is acceptable to them. It is a good thing to them. So you can't even push the mutually assured destruction here, because they view that as somehow martyrdom, as somehow more holy than what the people of Israel are doing. So there's a reason that Hamas builds its weapons caches underneath schools or underneath hospitals or underneath mosques, because they know if they're attacked, then they can look and say, what is Israel doing? Attacking civilians, attacking women, attacking children. That's not what's happening. And in fact, Israel's dropping leaflets saying, get out of Gaza, move away, go somewhere else. We're about to come into this place and destroy it. And then the people of Hamas are saying, no, stay here. You don't understand. You need to stay here. That's the score. That's the difference. One is pushing life and one is pushing death. That's a clear difference.
Equating the people of Palestine, Gaza, etc., with Hamas is ridiculous. And you know that's ridiculous. It's yes, you did. You said that. You said that Israelis. You said that. You said Israelis love their children, et cetera, and then you quoted actions from Hamas. That's ridiculous.
Correct.
People are not their governments. They're not their militaries. And you can criticize the governments and the actions of those militaries, but you can also be a humanitarian and see dead children on both sides of this and side with them. That's not an appropriate way to frame this, and it's not fair.
Children as human shields. Hamas uses children as human shields and does so to much praise from Iran and
you're
others.
going to tell me that Israel,
about Palestine here. I'm talking about Hamas.
Are you going to say that children have not died as a result of Israel's actions? Because that's obviously not true. No, so what you're doing is saying that there's justification for one.
But they're put in harm's way because of Hamas. Israel goes out of its way to not harm civilians.
I think
Hamas puts them in that harm's way.
I'm going to leave it on this. Part of the point is what we saw since last Saturday, these horrific images, atrocities, deaths, Americans too being held hostage and killed, and yet we've heard silence from Hollywood and those on the left who love to speak out about everything. All of a sudden, they've been very, very quiet. That says as much as coming out and saying something from your mouth. It's insane what's happening right now.
Because there's a humanitarian issue on both sides of it.
Yes, but what I'm talking about is we saw this right here in New York City, the placards and people screaming and yelling things.
Hamas targets children and women and elderly.
All right.
And Israelis try to protect them.
I got to go, but look, Jonathan, I know you were in a tough spot. I appreciate you coming on here. Hogan, thank you again as well.